Welcome to ACTPod, a podcast show that sheds light on the stories and impact of the social sector. The show is proudly powered by Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. Let's begin the change.
Hello there. You're welcome to yet another insightful edition of your favorite podcasts, ACTPod, our story, our continent. My name is Abiodun and I'm going to be your host on this episode. Today, I'm going to be talking to an inspiring lady who is the founder and executive director of Irede Foundation. Irede Foundation is an organization that works to bring relief and hope to child amputees and their caregivers in order to ensure that they live their lives to the fullest. So I'm going to be chatting with Crystal Chigbu in the next few minutes, and she's going to be telling us all about Irede Foundation, how they came to be, and we'll hear the rest from her. Thank you very much, Crystal, for coming.
Thank you so much, Biodun, for having me.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome. All right, so we start as usual. We want to get to know who our guest is, and then we dive into other issues. So tell us, who is Crystal Chigbu, and how did you come about creating Irede Foundation?
Crystal is a people lover. I actually love people. I love the essence of people. I like working with children. So pretty much I'm the kind of person that when you come to my house, you see a lot of children just hovering around my house. People just come and dump their kids. So I really enjoy having kids around, and I love traveling, meeting people. So if you really look at who I am, my essence is just about people and loving people. Awesome. And then Irede Foundation. So basically, I think about 16 years ago now, I gave birth to my daughter with a congenital limb deformity, and her leg had to be amputated. Her right leg had something, a deformity called tibia hemimelemia. Basically, in plain English, she did not have a bone in the leg, and her knee did not form. I like to describe it as having a boneless chicken. So if you think of the thigh of a chicken not having a bone at all, that was what the experience was. And so after we gave birth to her, we were told that the best option we had was to amputate the leg. And pretty much, I think like every parent will do, we did not take that chance at all. We decided to wait, do a lot of research, ask questions, try to understand if there is a better option than just amputating the leg. And I would say, as an African parent also, things like it's not in our lineage. Nobody has done this before. Yeah. We've not seen this before. Where did you bring this from? So all of that actually made us pause on taking the action on amputation. But after 2 years and 3 months, we decided to go ahead with the amputation. And then the leg was amputated, and she started using an artificial leg afterwards. And I had a lot of questions. I started asking myself, how is she going to cope? Will she ever get married? Will she be able to go to school? Will she ever get a job like myself? And so I just wanted to really tell my story and just really journal, as it were. So blogs were not even really a thing then. So I just wanted to journal, write down my experiences. And from journaling and writing my experiences down, I would get calls from the hospital, and they would say, oh, we have someone that has a similar situation like your daughters. Would you mind sharing your experience, helping them go through that journey? Yeah. And that's how I started talking with other parents and helping them realize that even though my daughter's leg had been amputated, she was still able to go to school, and shared the experiences with them until I met one parent that had actually, abandoned her life because she gave birth to a child with a congenital deformity also. But this time around, it wasn't a leg like my daughter's, it was the hand. And so I went through with her with a process of rehabilitation, as it were. She was able to put her son in school. And after that, she now went back to her work. Her husband could also work. They started engaging with the community. And the question I asked myself was, what if I could do this with a lot more parents? What if I could just help them, have a life? And so that's how Irede Foundation came to be. The name Irede coming from my daughter's name. Her Yoruba name is Ireoluwade. So coined it from that, and really decided to share the experiences that I went through and what I did with the woman, which was majorly first educating her, realizing that it wasn't her fault. Because when you think of Africa at large, charge, you're blamed for your child's disability, as if there is something you could have done or not done that gave birth to, that disability being. And the second thing, after educating, is also just really bringing encouragement to support, like a support group to the caregivers. And because if you think of where I started from, it was majorly just really journaling. I couldn't make a decision in 2.5 years almost because it has never been in our family. Nobody was really giving support. So my husband and I almost felt like we were on our own. So the second thing we do is a support system for parents of children with disabilities. And then we went further to start empowering the children.
Good.
Growing up, I would see, amputees on the road, and all they did was beg. And so for me, I couldn't imagine seeing my daughter staying on the streets and begging. So question was, what could be done to empower? So from providing artificial limbs for the children to go back to school so that they can compete favorably with their typical, we started also peer-to-peer mentoring, where an older amputee could mentor a younger amputee. Very quickly also, we realized that it was just beyond that. And we started getting them job ready, providing them with leadership skills to help them to the point where, they can, again, cope and be able to have something economically for themselves. Then fourthly, we do what we call Engage, which is basically our advocacy program of engaging with government, talking policies, implementation of these policies that have been. And so I would say that's what the Irede Foundation is in a nutshell and what we do.
I wish I had a Shakira here. I needed to actually shake it, because I could hear the passion in your voice. So you had an experience, you had what would have been an adversity, and then that led instead to your triumph, instead of you just saying, oh, and just groping and say, oh, this has happened to me, what am I going to do? You got help, and then you didn't just stop there. You started helping others, and then here we are today. Irede Foundation was birthed. So it will be safe to say that Irede was birthed out of passion. And then, for you to continue existing as an organization, you needed to have moved from passion, to them getting structure and all of that. So how has the transition been for you from when you started to where you are now in terms of, your structure as an organization? What are you doing differently now with the children? I like the fact that, you support the parents, the caregivers, you provide support for them, you educate them. You also do not leave it at that. You educate the children as well and also empower them. So what has changed from when you started to where you are now at Irede Foundation?
Okay, so when Irede started, initially I had a day job. So I was working with a multinational, and I wasn't spending 100% of my time with Irede. And basically, we had like a coordinator that did all the activities and just tried to pull the organization together. When I joined in on the organization, the first thing that we had to do was put governance in place, because we realized that, there was so much that Crystal's Passion could do, but if we were going to be collecting people's funds and implementing, then you need to have a system in place that showed that you were doing the things that you set out to do.
Right.
And so we had to set up a board. We had our board giving direction in terms of strategic guidance on what we needed to do. The second thing that we did was realize that, it was beyond Crystal. So I couldn't get to do it all by myself. We had to put in place a structure that had the kind of departments or teams that we needed to do more for the children. So I'm sure that most organizations will have a retreat at, say, the beginning of their fiscal year. And so we did something like that also. We would have a retreat and decide and say, we're going to help X number of children, and put a system in place to get that done. I think one important thing we also did was to define who we were not. Because when we started, everybody would say, there's this kind of disability. Are you sure you don't want to do this? Oh, the children don't have this. Oh, maybe their parents don't have food. So we had to define who we were not and define the things that we wanted to do very specifically. And in doing that, I think it's giving us a kind of balance as to the projects we take on and the projects that we do not take on. And then also, one of the key things that we've done as an organization also that has really changed is you can't just walk into Irede and say, I spoke with Crystal. So because I spoke with Crystal, I'm going to get my limb done. It doesn't work like that. There's a systemic process that goes through. There's somebody that is in charge of different things. And those people actually go ahead to make the decision in terms of the things that needed to be done. So if those things are not aligned in our strategic plan, we didn't do them. And it was also defining what success was for us. We knew what success looked like. And every time we worked in that direction, whether we hit the goal or not, we knew that we were on our journey to success. And one child, 10 children, we were very happy that we were on, doing the things that we wanted to do as an organization. So I would say those are the things that have changed.
Awesome. So if you have a passion and you want to start a non-profit, I would say come take lessons from Crystal Chigbu. Besides, ACT Foundation, sometime 2 years ago, also published a guidebook for non-profits. So it has all of the information that you need from starting your non-profit to, measuring impact. So you can always get that on Amazon. It's the ACT guidebook. All right. So you mentioned policies, when you were talking, when you started. And I pretty much like that because persons with disabilities, they already face a jeopardy in the society. People look down on them. And now we have children who are living with disabilities. That's like double jeopardy. Yeah. So in terms of working with the government, working with policymakers on making things better for them, how has the experience been for you? What would you like to see the government do differently in terms of policies for people with disabilities?
Working over the years on policy development and all of that, I think as a country, we're on the right path because we have a law that is backing persons with disabilities. When I begin to think of the things that I think government should do differently, I'll say it's implementation. It doesn't have another name. We have so many policies. We have so many laws that are supposed to be backing things. However, in terms of implementing and making sure that those things happen, we're still way behind. So a simple one would be to think of accessibility and the accessibility code that has been put in place for buildings. There are laws that are backing it. However, how many buildings today have the kind of ramps that they should have for those on wheelchair or, to go through, or provide the kind of information, say if I am blind, how do I actually access the building without really getting help from anybody or feeling pity, or even as simple as parking. Those things, they're in place. We know that these are the things that we should do, but people are not implementing it. And so if we have, like we have agencies also in place and you're trying to enforce and ensure that these things happen, then I think we'll see a lot of progress, especially with persons with disabilities. Or organizations are supposed to employ X quota of persons with disabilities that are qualified. Then when you do those things, then they can also compete favorably with their typical. Then you know that going to school was not a waste after all. Ensuring that the transportations that we have actually help persons with disabilities to access them. So all those things are already in place. The laws are there. The policies are there to support it. It's just ensuring that we implement it. So if governments can do that, I think we will make a lot of progress.
And lives will be actually better for persons with disability. Yeah. Okay, so how is Irede Oluwade? Did I get that?
Yes, you did.
How's she doing there?
She's doing very well.
Awesome.
She's 15 and you could see all of the progress. She's in boarding school. She rides a bicycle, she swims. She practically lives her life by herself to the fullest, and not just her, also children at the foundation. So it's really exciting.
Okay. So besides Irede Oluwade, could you share maybe a couple of success stories of the children you have worked with, when you started with them, the journey you took them through, and how they are doing now?
One of the kids that, and I don't even know if I should call her a kid right now because she's becoming a really strong lady, is Precious Olaiton. Due to medical negligence, she had an amputation that occurred. So she was given an injection on the wrong nerve, and it actually withered the hand, and she got amputated. When I met with her mom, pretty much, it didn't even affect just her hand alone. She actually also had one of her eyes actually affected. So she is blind on one eye and one hand is amputated. And really, they couldn't imagine that Precious could go to school. But I stay here today to tell you that Precious is in the university reading pharmacy or studying pharmacy. She's doing absolutely well. She's able to connect with the rest of her team in school, and she's doing amazingly well. For us, the pride really is when the child is able to go to school and compete with their typical. So you're not feeling like because I have this amputation.
Yeah.
So Precious is one child. Or another person that comes to mind is Ifeoluwa Joseph.
Okay.
Again, he was born with a congenital deformity, just like my daughters, and the leg had to be amputated. In his mother's words, I did not think that Precious can amount to anything in life. Ifeoluwa can amount to anything in life. But Ifeoluwa is in SS3 now.
Wow.
And we've worked with him over the last 8 years. And he's doing, just before our eyes, he got into secondary school. And now he's about to leave secondary school. And I think there's no other joy for you measuring the kind of impact of the work that you do than to see the child that you took from a certain place actually being able to fulfill the things that you've called out to do as an organization. So I really think that's amazing. And we have lots of stories of these children across the country. And that's the beauty of the work that we do.
Many thanks to you, Crystal, and Irede Foundation, for the hope that you're giving to these children. If it wasn't for the help they got from you, who would know what would become of them? So I love the fact that, you have success stories. In the work that you do, I can imagine that you've had to cross hurdles or are still crossing hurdles or having to deal with changes, with challenges. Could you share with us some of those challenges and how you've been dealing with them in terms of running the organization, whatever it is that the challenges are that you would like to share?
I think the first challenge that comes to mind is actually the way disability is viewed in the continent. It's viewed as a case of pity. There's a lot of stigma and stereotyping against persons with disability. What we've done so far with that is doing a lot of awareness, trying to ensure, and just recently we launched our comic books that helps us go into I would say from primary 6 to secondary schools to ensure that we are able to educate children about disabilities. So not just children with disabilities now, other kids, and they become our ambassadors to ensuring that people are informed. So when you teach a child, what you can guarantee is that the child will go home, teach their parents, teach their other children. So that way we've been able to, further the work that we do in terms of just creating the kind of awareness that helps people know about disability. So we're taking them from when they're young and they are beginning to educate people. When we sometimes go into those schools and you ask questions, you will be shocked that other children will say, I don't want to be in a class with a child with disability, because all they see is the disability. But by the time we're done with the programs, by the time they now have access to the comic books, sometimes you hear some of them say, I want to be like this superhero. I'm loving this superhero. And then you now ask them again what they know about disability. And you ask them, will you now stay in a class? They say yes. If Sian, and Sian is a character that is visually impaired, if Sian can be doing this, I want to be in the same class with Sian. So you see that you've been able to change their behavior from whatever it is that they're thinking to another way. I think another thing, huge challenge that I would say we've had is also in terms of inclusive education. You will be shocked that you see amputees and schools don't want to accept these children because other parents will say, I don't want this kind of child in the same class with my child.
That's discrimination.
Again, It is discrimination, but unfortunately, these are some of the things that we are faced with. So with the inclusive education program that we're doing with the government currently, we're going into schools, we are on radio talking about it and ensuring that we begin to change the mind of people concerning this. And of course, still on the awareness, because awareness is so huge. We have our Out on a Limb program that we do, and we try to use that to reach millions of people, both directly and indirectly, seeing how we drive change in terms of what people know about disabilities and what they now need to know. And of course, I would say fund. I'm not sure that there is any non-profit that do not have challenges with respect to funds, because we provide mostly prosthetic limbs. They are not even made in Nigeria. They're not made in Africa. You have to import them. So we have that huge, disparity and trying to raise the kind of funds that we need. What have we done with that? I think for me, when I think of that, it's just being a credible organization, because people will give to what they know that is credible. So people really want to give. So we continue to ensure that our books are intact and they are correct. We continue to ensure the right corporate governance, and that way we've been able to consistently access some funds that continue to help us to deliver on these limbs.
Awesome. So I heard you mention that you work with the government, and so that actually speaks to what I would have asked you next, which is the fact that, for you to go far, for you to scale in terms of, making impact, you need partnership, definitely, you need collaborations. So besides working with the government, who are the other stakeholders that you work with, so that together you can continue to forge ahead in your cause?
Oh, I think without mincing words, one of the stakeholders that we've worked with, we're still working with, is ACT Foundation. And I really want to commend and talk about this project because it's our leadership program that ensures that young persons with disabilities are job ready. And one of the successes that we're able to get from this was when we put out this young people with disabilities, after giving them the skills, training them, and they were ready, and they were interning with organizations. Some organizations retained them.
Wow.
Because these organizations now could see that, working with the person with disabilities is actually not a problem at all. We just need to adapt differently. We just need to learn other things. And even the people with disabilities now realize that it's not like people hate us. So once they are aware, they can work with us and we can work. Because when you look at it, most people with disabilities, they actually don't work in the corporate environments. You see them probably learning a trade, being artisans. But now they are beginning to work in corporate environments. So that's one of our biggest partnerships, I would say, with ACT Foundation. We've also worked with the Disability Rights Funds because the work we do with the government is actually sponsored by the Disability Rights Funds, ensuring a rights-based approach to disability inclusion, making sure that from the grassroots and also from the government place, we actually do have in place, the right policies that support these children to go back to school. And that rights-based approach is also very, very important beyond the emotions of what it is. And we work with a lot of corporate organizations, from NMPC SNEPCO to working with Stanbic IBTC to working with, ACE, with CFAO, a couple of them, Procter & Gamble. And you just really realize that then we can make the emotional part of it come to being, because they go beyond just providing the limbs for the children. IHS now trying to ensure that these children get an education, they have the right health insurance, and now they are also having the opportunity to intern. So that's one of the big things that IHS does. Awesome. So they go beyond just providing limbs. It's almost like it's a end-to-end approach of just giving limbs, education, having the right kind of health insurance, and then even supporting the caregivers to have the right kind of jobs to now sustain their children. So the sustainability is built in from the beginning. So these are some of the people that we partner with, and of course individuals across the world. I think that they are our biggest fans because they continue to give to the cause. And so we have all of this approach to partnering with people and individuals when they give their money also, they put their mouth there and they tell you that people with disabilities are not to be pitied. They're meant to just be enabled to deliver.
Yes, empathize with them at the
Absolutely.
most. Yes. Awesome. Anyway, at ACT Foundation, we're also proud to have partnered and to continue partnering with you, because you're definitely doing, great work that many people wouldn't want to do or continue doing. So if a funder, a potential partner was looking for you, where would they be able to find you? You want to tell us about your social media handles?
Okay, so our social media handles are just the Irede Foundation. So be it our website, Instagram, X, whatever, YouTube, it's the Irede Foundation, spelled as THEIRED Foundation. And I think also, if you want to reach us, if you just reach out to ACT Foundation, they will fish us out.
Yes,
because they know where to find out.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Do you have any final thing to say as we wrap up?
As we wrap up, I think I would want to say three major things. The first one is encourage parents of children with disabilities. If you ever come across this podcast, knowing that your child can actually live a fulfilling life in spite of the kind of disabilities that they have at all. It is challenging. It can be stressful, but a life that is independent is actually very possible, and your child can live a full life. So don't be discouraged. All you need to do is, do the work, give it time, and you will do well. Then for other non-profits, if you're just starting off and you're a bit discouraged, maybe you feel like you don't have fun, please put all the right processes and systems in place and watch your organization grow. So I believe that when you put those systems and processes in place, you will actually do very well. And then finally, that disability is a mind game. I want everybody to know that all we are asking from you is not to pity persons with disabilities, but realize that you can enable them by just removing whatever barrier is on the way. And an example, for instance, is if you just have staircases and you have somebody on wheelchair, they're not going to be able to go through. They will need your help. But once you put a ramp, they can wheel themselves up and they will be fine. So thank you, and continue to ensure disability inclusion in everything that you do.
Thank you very much, Crystal. There you've heard it from Crystal. If your child lives with a disability, that is certainly not the end of their lives. There is something you can do to ensure that that child still lives his or her life to the fullest. And that's how we end it today on our ACTPod. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to ACTPod. For inquiries and feedback, please reach us on actpod@actrustfoundation.org. Follow us on social media at ACTFoundation_ on Instagram and Twitter, and Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation on Facebook. The show is proudly powered by Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. ACTPod, our story, our continent.